My parents skipped my baby shower to help my sister close on a house. I tried to forgive them because grief makes you desperate for any version of family. Then I found out the down payment came from my dead husband's life insurance policy. That morning, I stood in my bedroom in a soft yellow dress, both hands resting on my 7-month pregnant belly, trying to recognize the woman in the mirror. Yellow had been Jonah's favorite color on me. He used to say it made me look like I was standing in sunlight, even when the sky was gray. Now he was gone, killed 8 months earlier in a highway accident, and I was preparing to attend a baby shower for a daughter he would never hold. "Okay, baby girl," I whispered, smoothing the dress over my stomach. "We can do this." Outside, my backyard had been transformed into something soft and almost unreal. My best friend, Lacey, had strung cream ribbons from the pergola. Pastel flowers filled mason jars. Tiny lemon cakes sat on white plates. Gifts wrapped in pink and yellow paper covered the long table beneath the oak tree. Beside them was a framed photo of Jonah from our honeymoon in Maine, his hair windblown, his smile crooked, one arm around my shoulders. Next to the gift table was an empty chair. "That one is for him," Lacey told me quietly when she caught me staring. I nodded because if I opened my mouth, I would cry before the shower even started. I had not wanted a party. For weeks, I told everyone it felt wrong to celebrate when Jonah was not here to assemble the crib, complain lovingly about diaper prices, or press his warm hand over my stomach and pretend he could translate kicks. But my friends insisted grief was not the opposite of joy. They said my daughter deserved to be welcomed. They said I deserved one afternoon where people showed up without needing anything from me. So I agreed. I agreed because my mother promised she would be there early. Claudia Sutton had insisted on helping with the grandparent details. She ordered 2 little wooden signs for the seats nearest mine. One said Grandma, the other said Grandpa. She texted me a photo when they arrived and wrote, "Finally, something sweet to look forward to." My father, Warren, called the night before and said, "Your mother has already picked out her outfit. She wants pictures with the bump." I believed him. That is the part I still hate admitting. By noon, guests began arriving. Women from my office came carrying gift bags and careful smiles. Jonah's sister Camille hugged me so tightly I felt the baby shift between us. My neighbor brought a handmade quilt. Lacey's mother cried before she even reached the dessert table. Everyone was kind. Everyone was gentle. And every few minutes, my eyes drifted to the 2 empty chairs marked Grandma and Grandpa. At first, I told myself traffic was bad. Then I told myself my mother was probably doing her makeup too carefully because photographs mattered to her. Then I told myself my father had stopped to buy flowers. By 1 o'clock, the games had started. By 1:30, people were writing advice cards for me to read after the birth. By 2, the cake had been cut. The chairs were still empty. Lacey leaned close while I opened a box of tiny white socks. "Do you want me to call them?" "No," I said quickly. "I will." I stepped around the side of the house where the noise softened. My hands were damp around my phone. I called my mother first. She answered on the 4th ring, breathless and irritated. "Marin, honey, this is not a good time." For a second, I thought something terrible had happened. My entire body went cold. "Mom, are you okay? Is Dad okay?" "Yes, we are fine," she said. "But we are in the middle of something important with Blair." I closed my eyes. Blair. My younger sister had been in the middle of something important for as long as I could remember. A breakup, a panic attack, a career crisis, a spiritual reset, a birthday month that required emotional support. In our family, Blair's feelings were weather events. Everyone adjusted their plans around them. What happened? I asked. Is she hurt? No, she is not hurt. She is closing on her house today. I stared at the side fence. Jonah had meant to repaint it before winter. Her house? Yes. The final papers got moved up, and she needed us. You know how overwhelming these things are for her. I looked back toward the yard. Through the gap between the house and fence, I could see Camille laughing politely while holding a paper plate. I could see the gifts. I could see Jonah's photo catching a stripe of sunlight. Mom, I said slowly, today is my baby shower. There was a pause. Not guilt, not surprise, calculation. I know that, sweetheart, she said. But you have all your friends there, don't you? The sentence landed quietly. That almost made it worse. Yes, I said. I have friends here. And Blair has no one, my mother said. Theo is gone. She is trying to start over. Watching you become a mother has been very hard on her. I pressed my palm against my stomach. Watching me become a mother has been hard on her? She feels left behind, Marin. You know she has always struggled with feeling chosen? Something inside me cracked so cleanly, I almost heard it. I wanted to say, my husband is dead. I wanted to say, your granddaughter has an empty chair where her father should be. I wanted to ask how many times I was expected to shrink my life so Blair did not have to feel the size of hers. Instead, because I had spent 32 years being trained to make pain convenient for other people, I said, okay. My mother softened immediately, mistaking my numbness for obedience. We will come by later if we can. Try not to make this a big dramatic thing. Today is happy for both of you girls in different ways. Both of you girls. One daughter was carrying a fatherless baby, the other was getting house keys. Sure, I said. When I hung up, I did not cry. I just stood there beside the trash bins with my phone in my hand, listening to the faint, cheerful sound of people guessing the size of my stomach with ribbon. Then my phone buzzed. Blair had posted. The photo showed her standing in front of a white 2-story house with black shutters and a glossy red front door. She wore a cream pantsuit and held a set of keys near her face like she was in a real estate commercial. My parents stood on either side of her. My mother's arm was around Blair's waist. My father was smiling in a way I had not seen since before Jonah died. The caption read, "New beginnings happen when family shows up for the daughter who needs them most." For a moment, all I could do was look at those words. Family shows up. Lacey found me before I could lock my screen. Her eyes moved from my face to the phone. She saw the post. She did not say anything at first, which was how I knew it was bad. "Oh, Marin," she whispered. I gave her the kind of smile you give when you are trying not to fall apart in front of someone who loves you. They are with Blair. At a house closing? Apparently watching me become a mother has been hard on her. Lacey looked toward the yard, then back at me. Do you want everyone to leave? No. The answer came fast, but this time I meant it. No, Jonah would hate that. Jonah would have hated the whole thing, not loudly. He was never loud when he was angry. He would have gone quiet in that way that made careless people nervous. Then he would have taken my hand, kissed my knuckles, and said, "You do not have to earn basic decency from people who call themselves family." I could hear him so clearly that my knees weakened. So we kept going. I went back to my baby shower and smiled like my mouth belonged to someone else. I opened a baby monitor for my coworkers. I admired the quilt my neighbor had spent 3 months sewing. I laughed when Camille gave me a tiny onesie that said Daddy's backup singer, then cried quietly because Jonah had sung badly and proudly in the shower every morning. When guests asked where my parents were, I said, they had something come up. People accepted that because polite people are trained not to dig into visible wounds. But Camille knew. She had seen Blair's post too. She sat beside me after most of the gifts were opened, placing herself between me and the two empty grandparent chairs. Jonah would be furious, she said under her breath. I know. He loved you so much. That did it. Not the missing parents, not the post, not my mother's voice telling me not to make drama. Those 4 words broke something open. I looked at Jonah's photo across the yard and swallowed the sound rising in my throat. I keep thinking I am grieving him, I whispered. But today it feels like I am grieving everyone. Camille took my hand. Then let them be gone. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But grief makes you foolish in specific ways. It does not always make you reckless. Sometimes it makes you hopeful past the point of humiliation. I still wanted my mother to walk through the gate with an apology and flowers. I still wanted my father to kiss my forehead and say he had made a mistake. I still wanted the version of my family I had been promised as a child, the one that appeared in Christmas cards and disappeared whenever I needed anything real. My parents never came. For 3 days, I told myself it was only a party. A painful party, yes. A cruel absence, yes. But not unforgivable. Pregnancy had made my emotions raw. Widowhood had made everything feel symbolic. Maybe my parents had made a terrible choice because Blair was fragile. Maybe they would realize it. Maybe they would apologize before the baby came. On the 3rd morning after the shower, I sat at my kitchen table with chamomile tea I could not stomach and opened my laptop to pay bills. Jonah used to handle our shared budget because he loved spreadsheets, and I loved pretending I understood his color-coded tabs. After he died, the practical things arrived like a second funeral. Medical bills, funeral expenses, mortgage paperwork, insurance forms, password resets, death certificates. Every envelope felt like proof that the world expected me to keep functioning just because paperwork had deadlines. Then an email arrived from Jonah's life insurance company. The subject line read, "Confirmation required. Secondary distribution instruction." I read it once, then twice, then again, slower, because those words made no sense inside my life. There should not have been any secondary distribution. Jonah's policy was simple. He had explained it to me during one of those boring, responsible conversations couples have because they assume responsibility will keep disaster theoretical. If anything happened to him, the money was for the mortgage, my maternity leave, medical bills, childcare, and a trust for our daughter. Our daughter. Not my parents, not Blair, not a mysterious secondary instruction. I thought my parents had only missed a party. 3 days later, I learned they had stolen from the one person who could no longer defend me. Before Jonah died, I used to think my family's favoritism was something I had outgrown. That sounds ridiculous now. But when you are raised inside a system that hurts you, you learn to rename pain so you can survive it. You call neglect independence. You call manipulation concern. You call unfairness just how mom is or just how dad handles stress. You learn to laugh when everyone expects you to swallow another insult because laughing makes it look like you chose silence instead of being forced into it. In my family, Blair was fragile. I was capable. Those 2 words decided everything. Fragile meant Blair could ruin birthdays, graduations, dinners, holidays, and still be treated like the victim of whatever emotional storm she created. Capable meant I could be disappointed and nobody had to apologize. Capable meant I could cry in private, fix my own problems, and come back to the table once my face looked normal. My mother loved saying, "Maren has always been my strong one." People heard that and thought it was praise. It was not praise. It was permission. It gave everyone around me permission to ask too much, notice too little, and act offended when I finally said something hurt. The first time I remember understanding the difference between being loved and being useful, I was turning 11. My parents had promised me a backyard birthday party with a sprinkler, chocolate cupcakes, and a sleepover with 3 girls from school. That morning, Blair woke up in a mood because she wanted a birthday party too, even though her birthday was 4 months away. By noon, she was crying so hard, she threw up. My mother pulled me aside while my friends were already in the yard and said, "Honey, we need to tone things down. Your sister feels excluded. She can play with us," I said. "That is not the point," Mom whispered, glancing toward the sliding glass door where Blair was watching us with wet, furious eyes. "You are older. You understand more." That phrase followed me for the rest of my life. You are older, you understand, you can handle it. The sprinkler was turned off. The sleepover was canceled because Blair needed a calm evening. When I started crying, my father rubbed his forehead and said, "Marin, don't make your Mother's Day harder." My birthday became a family recovery event for Blair's feelings. That was how it always worked. In high school, I got a part-time job at a pharmacy because my parents said money was tight. I paid for my own college application fees, my own senior photos, half of my used car, and every dress I wore to a school dance. I told myself it made me responsible. Meanwhile, Blair had dance lessons, private voice coaching, therapy retreats in Sedona, and a closet full of clothes my mother called confidence investments. When I asked once why Blair's confidence cost more than my tuition deposits, my father put down his fork and looked at me like I had said something vulgar. "Your sister has different needs," he said. I learned then that need was not measured by urgency, it was measured by volume. Blair cried louder, so Blair needed more. I built a life around being low maintenance. I studied hard. I got scholarships. I built a small medical software company from a laptop in a rented office with bad lighting and a coffee machine that worked only when it felt threatened. I became the daughter who remembered deadlines, sent birthday flowers, covered emergency bills, and answered the phone even when I knew the conversation would cost me something. Then I met Jonah. Jonah Ellis was the first person who made me feel seen without making me perform usefulness first. He was gentle in a way that did not feel weak, practical in a way that did not feel cold. He read warranty manuals. He labeled chargers. He believed soup was a love language. He drove with both hands on the wheel and hummed off key whenever he was thinking. On our third date, my mother called 4 times because Blair had gotten into a fight with her boyfriend and needed family support. I apologized to Jonah and stepped outside the restaurant to answer. When I came back 20 minutes later, embarrassed and ready to explain, he simply pushed my pasta toward me because it was getting cold. "Everything okay?" he asked. "Blair crisis," I said, trying to laugh. He watched my face. "Do those happen a lot?" "Only since birth." Jonah smiled, but not because he thought it was funny. He smiled the way a person does when they recognize a bruise before you admit it hurts. Later, when we were engaged, he saw more. He saw my mother call me selfish for choosing a September wedding because Blair had always imagined herself as a fall bride. Blair was not engaged at the time. She was not even dating anyone seriously. But my mother still asked if I could avoid making her feel left behind. Jonah hung up the phone for me that night. Not aggressively. He just took it from my shaking hand, ended the call, and set it face down on the counter. Then he said, "They don't ask for help. They invoice your guilt." I laughed because it was so precise that it felt almost rude. But Jonah did not laugh. He came around the kitchen island, rested his hands on my shoulders, and said, "Marin, love should not come with a balance due." I wanted to believe him. I did believe him most days, but old training does not disappear just because someone kind loves you correctly. Part of me still believed that if I could just be patient enough, generous enough, forgiving enough, my family might finally look at me and say, "There you are. We should have chosen you too." When Jonah died, that hope came crawling back. Death rearranges your pride. It turns strong women into little girls standing in doorways, waiting for someone to tell them what to do. The highway accident happened on a rainy Thursday evening. A truck hydroplaned 2 lanes over. Traffic folded into itself. And just like that, my husband became a sentence police officers had to practice before saying out loud, "I was 6 weeks pregnant." We had found out 9 days earlier. Jonah had cried harder than I did when the test turned positive. He picked me up and spun me once in the bathroom before remembering pregnant women were not amusement park rides. That night, he ordered 3 parenting books and put a tiny pair of yellow socks in his online cart because he said, "Our baby needs a signature color." 9 days later, I was sitting in a hospital room with my hands around a paper cup of water while someone said the words, "I am so sorry," in a voice that had been used too many times before. After that, everything blurred. Funeral home, death certificates, insurance calls, employer forms, sympathy cards, casseroles, flowers, people touching my shoulders, people asking what I needed when nobody could give me the only answer that mattered. My father stepped in during the paperwork stage. At the time, I thought it was mercy. Warren Sutton had been an insurance broker for nearly 20 years before he moved into consulting. He understood policies, claims, beneficiary forms, payout timelines, tax language, all the things that made my head throb when I tried to read them through grief and morning sickness. He came to my house one afternoon with a folder, a legal pad, and the grave, competent expression he wore when he wanted to be taken seriously. "Marin," he said, sitting across from me at the kitchen table, "let your father carry this part." I cried when he said it, not because the sentence was beautiful, though at the time I thought it was. I cried because I was so tired of being capable. I was tired of standing, tired of answering questions, tired of being told I was brave when all I wanted was to crawl into Jonah's side of the bed and disappear into the smell of his shampoo. So I let my father help. I handed him copies of Jonah's policy documents. I forwarded emails. I signed forms he placed in front of me after he summarized them. I gave him access to a shared folder where I had scanned death certificates, identification documents, marriage records, and account information because he said it would make the process easier. He told me not to worry when the insurance company asked for additional verification. He told me delays were normal. He told me large policies took time. He told me, "The last thing you need is stress while carrying that baby." And because I wanted my father to be a father, I believed him. Jonah's life insurance policy was not enormous by celebrity standards, but to us, it was life-changing because it was safety. It was the mortgage paid during maternity leave. It was medical bills. It was childcare. It was time to grieve without rushing back into 16-hour workdays. It was the beginning of a trust for the daughter Jonah would never hold. He had chosen that policy carefully. I remember the night he explained it. We were eating takeout on the living room floor because our dining table was covered in paint samples. He had printed documents and highlighted sections in blue. "If anything ever happens to me," he said, "this keeps you from having to make desperate decisions." I threw a napkin at him. "Can we not talk about you dying while I'm eating noodles?" "I know. I hate it too." He caught the napkin and smiled sadly. "But love is also paperwork sometimes." I rolled my eyes then. I would give anything to go back and listen without fear disguised as irritation. After the funeral, my father told me the claim was processing. Every couple of weeks, I asked if there was news. Every couple of weeks, he gave me the same calm answer. These things take time. When I worried about bills, he said, "Don't panic." When I asked whether I should call the company myself, he said, "You can, but you will only upset yourself. Let me shield you from the bureaucracy." That word, shield, meant something to me then. It meant protection. Now I know it meant obstruction. By the time my baby shower came around, I was still waiting on the final insurance distribution. I had enough savings to function, and my company was doing well. But I was careful. I delayed decisions. I postponed setting up the full nursery. I told myself that once the policy came through, I would build the trust, plan maternity leave properly, and breathe. Meanwhile, Blair bought a house, a white two-story house with black shutters, a glossy red door, and a caption about families showing up for the daughter who needed them most. I did not yet know that my father had used my grief like a key. I did not know that while I was vomiting in the mornings and sleeping with Jonah's sweatshirt under my cheek, documents were moving through systems under my name. I did not know that my electronic signature had been placed somewhere it did not belong. I did not know that the folder I had trusted my father to carry had become a map to steal from me. For 3 days after the baby shower, I kept trying to make their absence smaller than it was. Then the insurance email arrived. Confirmation required, secondary distribution instruction. I stared at those words until they blurred. And for the first time, a thought entered my mind so clearly, it felt like Jonah had placed it there himself. What if Dad was not helping me? What if he had never been helping me? The first thing I did was not call my father. That surprises people when I tell the story now. They expect rage. They expect a dramatic phone call, maybe screaming, maybe accusations. But grief had changed my instincts. Before Jonah died, I might have called immediately. I might have needed someone to tell me I was overreacting. I might have given my father the chance to explain away the email before I understood what I was looking at. I might have let my mother hear the panic in my voice and turn it into proof that I was unstable. But widowhood had taught me one brutal lesson. When the worst thing has already happened, you stop trusting comfort just because it is familiar. So I sat at my kitchen table, one hand on my stomach, the other frozen on the mouse, and read the email again. Below the subject line was a formal message from the insurance company thanking me for my patience during the finalization of claim disbursement. It stated that due to a recent internal audit, they required confirmation regarding a secondary distribution instruction attached to Jonah's policy payout. Attached to the email was a secure link. I clicked it. The portal asked me to verify my identity. I answered security questions, entered a code sent to my phone, and waited while a loading circle spun in the middle of the screen. The page opened to a brief confirmation form. It referenced a secondary distribution request dated 3 weeks earlier. The authorized beneficiary was listed as me. The instruction divided the payout into 2 channels. One was a trust account. The other was something called a family protection account. I read that phrase so many times it stopped looking like English. Family protection account. I had never heard those words in my life. I downloaded the confirmation notice as a PDF. Then I took screenshots, every page, every date, every reference number. I did not know exactly what I needed, but some deep animal part of me understood that proof mattered now. Only after I had saved everything did I call my father. He answered quickly, which made me wonder if he had been expecting me. "Marin," he said, warm and careful. "How are you feeling today?" "I got an email from the insurance company," I said. Silence. Not long. maybe 2 seconds. But I knew my father. Warren Sutton was a man who filled silence when he felt in control. He explained. He corrected. He used tone like a courtroom exhibit. That little gap told me more than any confession could have. "What kind of email?" he asked. "A confirmation request for a secondary distribution instruction." He exhaled softly. "Oh, that. Oh, that." My stomach turned. "What does that mean?" I asked. "It is routine," he said. "These companies use confusing language. I told you that from the beginning." "What is a family protection account?" Another pause. Then his voice sharpened by half an inch. "Where did you see that?" "In the email." "You should forward it to me." "No," I said. The word came out before I could soften it, before I could add an apology, before I could make it easier for him. My father went quiet again. "Marin," he said at last, "you are 7 months pregnant. You have been through unimaginable trauma. This is exactly why I told you not to get pulled into the administrative side. I am the beneficiary. I know that. It is my husband's policy. I know that too. Then why is there an account attached to it that I do not recognize?" He made a tired sound, like I was exhausting him. "Because sometimes families structure these things to make sure everyone is protected." My skin went cold. "Everyone?" I asked. "I do not mean everyone literally." "Who is everyone, Dad?" "Marin, this is not a productive conversation while you are upset." "I am not upset," I said, even though my hands were shaking. "I am asking a question. And I am telling you this is routine." "No, you are telling me not to ask." His tone changed then. The softness dropped away. "You need to be very careful," he said. "Careful about what?" "About making accusations when you do not understand the process. I have not accused you of anything, but you are using that tone." I almost laughed. I was sitting alone in the kitchen of the house I had shared with my dead husband, reading about a mysterious account attached to his life insurance money, and my father wanted to discipline my tone. For a second, I saw my whole childhood in miniature. Blair could scream, my mother could cry, my father could threaten. But if I asked a direct question, the problem became my delivery. "I want the full file," I said. "You do not need the full file." "Yes, I do." "Marin, I am calling the insurance company myself." The silence after that was different. Not irritated, alarmed. Finally, my father said, "That would be a mistake." "Why?" "Because you may create delays. There should not be anything left to delay if this is routine. You are letting grief make you suspicious." "No," I said quietly. "Grief made me trust you." I hung up before he could answer. Then I called the insurance company's beneficiary support line. The first representative was kind but limited. I asked for a supervisor. When she came on, I made my voice steady. "My name is Marin Ellis. I am the primary beneficiary on my late husband's policy. I need a complete copy of the claim file, including all distribution authorizations, bank transfer confirmations, identity verification records, electronic signature logs, communication history, and any third-party access notes." The supervisor hesitated. "Mrs. Ellis, that is a significant amount of documentation." "I understand. Is there a specific concern?" I looked at Jonah's photo on the bookshelf across the room. It was the one from our wedding, taken just after the ceremony. He was laughing because I had stepped on his shoe during our recessional. "Yes," I said. "I believe someone may have submitted authorization under my name." Saying it out loud made it real. The supervisor's tone changed immediately. She became careful, professional, and much more specific. She walked me through the secure request process. She told me to upload a copy of my ID, Jonah's death certificate, and a signed statement requesting the complete file. She also told me to change the password to my beneficiary portal and enable additional verification. Do you have reason to believe your email or personal records were accessed by someone else? She asked. I thought about the shared folder, the forwarded documents, my father sitting at my kitchen table, sliding papers toward me while I cried so hard I could barely see. Yes, I said, I do. The first batch arrived that evening. I downloaded the file with my breath trapped in my chest. The first document was a payout summary. Total approved death benefit, $380,000. I stared at the number. Jonah had told me the policy amount, but seeing it there, attached to his death, made my throat close. It was not wealth. It was his final act of care. It was every boring premium payment he had made while I teased him about being too responsible. The payout summary showed 2 transfers. The first transfer was $250,000 to a trust account. I recognized that account. My father had helped me open it in my name after Jonah died. At the time, he told me it was the safest place to hold funds until I created a formal trust for the baby. The second transfer was $130,000 to an account labeled Sutton Family Protection Reserve. Sutton, not Ellis. Sutton, my maiden name, my parents' name, Blair's name. I opened the next document. Secondary distribution authorization. My name appeared at the top. Maren Ellis, my address, my phone number, my email. Below that was a statement authorizing the insurance company to distribute $130,000 to the Sutton Family Protection Reserve for family support obligations related to the surviving spouse's bereavement care, household transition, and related protective needs. It sounded official. It sounded soft. It sounded like something written by a person who knew how to hide theft under compassionate language. At the bottom was my electronic signature, Maren Ellis. Only it was not mine. Not exactly. It looked like my name. It had the correct slant, the loop in the M, the sharp little hook at the end of the S. But I knew my own signature the way you know your own face in a mirror. This version was too clean, too copied. It had the stiffness of something traced from a still image. I opened the signature certificate. Timestamp, 5 days before Blair's closing. My breath stopped. 5 days before the photo of Blair in front of the White House. 5 days before my parents skipped my baby shower to stand beside her with those keys. The IP login location was listed beneath the timestamp, my parents' town. Then a more detailed access record. The device had logged in from an address that matched my parents' home internet provider. No, I said aloud. It was not disbelief. Not really. It was grief's last attempt to protect me. No, not Dad. No, not Mom. No, not over Jonah's money. No, not while I was pregnant. But the documents did not care about my denial. The documents kept going. There were communication notes from someone listed as Warren Sutton, assisting beneficiary due to bereavement-related incapacity. There was an email from my father asking whether a family reserve could be established if the beneficiary authorized it directly. There was a note that identity verification had been completed through uploaded documents. Documents I had given him. Death certificate, marriage certificate, my driver's license, policy number. The room blurred. By midnight, I had created a folder on my desktop named Jonah Policy File. Inside it, I saved every document, then I backed it up to a secure drive. Then I emailed copies to an account my father did not know existed. At 9 the next morning, I called the attorney Jonah's old coworker had recommended weeks earlier. Her name was Priya Callan. She specialized in estate disputes, insurance claims, and financial exploitation cases. I had saved her number but never used it because hiring a lawyer felt like admitting my family might be dangerous. Now, danger had a bank transfer. Priya called me back within an hour. Her voice was calm, low, and precise. She asked me what happened, and for once, I did not minimize. I told her about the baby shower, Blair's house, the email, my father's reaction, the payout, the forged authorization, the IP log, the timing. She did not interrupt except to ask dates. When I finished, there was a short silence. Then Priya said, "Do not confront them again." My hand tightened around the phone. I already called my father. That is all right. But from this point forward, no accusations, no emotional conversations, no warnings. They stole from my husband. I believe you, she said. Those 3 words almost broke me. Not, I am sure there is an explanation. Not family misunderstandings happen. Not grief can make things confusing. I believe you, Priya continued. What we need now is a clean record. Preserve everything. Screenshot social media posts. Save texts. Do not delete voicemails. Do not respond impulsively. Do not let them know how much you have. What happens next? I asked. Next, we request certified records. We notify the insurer of suspected fraud in writing. We examine the destination account. We look at the house closing. And we find out whether that money became Blair's down payment. I already know it did. You suspect it did? Priya corrected gently. Evidence will make them prove it. They were spending it while I was opening gifts, I said. Priya's voice softened, but only slightly. Marin, listen to me very carefully. Grief makes people emotional. Evidence makes people quiet. We are going to build evidence. The house was not a blessing. It was a receipt. 2 days later, Blair announced her housewarming party. Of course she did. It came as a glossy digital invitation posted across 3 social media platforms. There was a photo of her front door, now decorated with a wreath made of white roses and eucalyptus. Across the image, in elegant gold script, were the words, "A celebration of new feminine abundance." I stared at my phone and almost laughed. New feminine abundance. That was what she was calling it. Not theft, not fraud, not a down payment taken from a dead man's promise to his pregnant wife. Abundance. The caption was worse. After years of heartbreak, healing, and learning to receive, I am finally opening the doors to my sanctuary. So grateful for the family who believed I deserved a safe place to begin again. My mother commented within 3 minutes, "My beautiful girl, you deserve every blessing." My father added a red heart. Lacey saw the post and called me immediately. "You are not going," she said before I even said hello. "I know. You sound like you are going." "I am thinking." "No. Thinking is the hallway before bad decisions." I looked across the kitchen at the folder Priya had told me to keep near my laptop. The folder was thick already. "Priya said not to confront them," I said. "Good. Listen to Priya. I would not confront them. I just want to see it. The house. I want to know what my father thought my daughter could live without." That was the truth. Ugly, maybe, but true. I wanted to see the furniture, the rooms, the staged little corners Blair would photograph for attention. I wanted to look at the life she had built out of my loss and understand exactly how much comfort my family had purchased with my solence. When I told Priya, she was quiet for a long time. "I am going to advise against it," she said. "I know. You are emotionally exposed. They may try to provoke you. If you react, they will use it. I will not react. Everyone thinks that before they are provoked." "I need to see the house," Priya sighed. Then you go briefly. You do not accuse anyone. You do not discuss the insurance policy. You do not mention the documents. You observe. If someone says something important, write it down as soon as you leave. If you feel yourself losing control, you exit. And Marin, yes, you bring someone. So I brought Camille. Jonah's sister arrived at my house 20 minutes before the party, wearing black jeans, a gray sweater, and the expression of a woman prepared to commit a felony if emotionally necessary. You look like you are going to a funeral, I said. So do they. They just do not know it yet. Blair's new house sat on a quiet street lined with maple trees and expensive landscaping. It was even prettier in person than in the photos. White siding, black shutters, red door polished to a shine, a porch swing with cream cushions, 2 large planters overflowing with hydrangeas. Inside, the house smelled like candles, flowers, and money. That was my first thought. Money had a smell when it was trying to impress people. It was fresh paint and new upholstery. It was catered food arranged on slate boards. It was chilled wine in silver tubs. It was custom napkins printed with Blair's initials. It was a photographer with 2 cameras walking around capturing candid joy that had been purchased in advance. The living room was staged in shades of white and beige, so soft and curated it barely looked livable. A curved sofa sat beneath a gold-framed mirror. Designer throw pillows covered every surface. A marble coffee table held art books Blair had probably never opened. On the far wall, a neon sign read, "She is becoming." Camille saw it and muttered, "She is stealing." I touched her wrist lightly. "Please." I said it quietly. Across the room, my mother spotted us. For one brief second, Claudia's face changed, her smile froze, and something like panic flickered behind her eyes. Then she recovered. She came toward me with both arms open, performing warmth for the room. "Marin," she said too loudly. "You came." I let her hug me. Her perfume wrapped around me, powdery and familiar, and I hated that part of me, still wanted to collapse into my mother's arms and be held by someone who had not betrayed me. "You look tired," she whispered near my ear. Not, "You look beautiful." Not, "How is the baby?" Tired, a small blade placed carefully. I pulled back. "Pregnancy does that." My father appeared beside her. Warren wore a navy blazer and the same proud smile from Blair's closing photo. He kissed my cheek. His skin was cool. "Good to see you out," he said. "We have been worried." "I am sure you have." His eyes sharpened, but I smiled before he could decide whether my tone meant something. Blair descended the stairs like she had practiced it. She wore a white silk dress that looked bridal enough to be intentional and carried a champagne flute. She had no intention of drinking responsibly. Her hair fell in loose waves and her makeup was perfect. "Marin," she said, "you made it." "I was invited." "Of course you were." She embraced me loosely, careful not to press against my belly. "This is a family celebration." Family. The word had become a locked room. Blair stepped back and looked me over. "You are glowing." "I am pregnant." She laughed lightly, as if I had made a charming joke. "Still funny. I missed that." I wanted to ask if she missed Jonah too, or only his money. Instead, I looked around the room. "You have done a lot with the place." Her face brightened. "Do you love it?" I wanted it to feel healing, soft, safe, like a home that finally holds me. I needed restraint more than I needed oxygen. We moved through the party slowly. I observed exactly as Priya told me. The dining room had a table that could seat 12, already set with linen runners and gold flatware. The kitchen had new pendant lights, a farmhouse sink, and a refrigerator with panels that matched the cabinets. The backyard had a fire pit, outdoor furniture, and string lights arranged like something from a lifestyle blog. Then Blair insisted on showing us the upstairs. "You have to see my favorite room," she said. At the end of the hallway was a guest room painted a soft blush color. There was a daybed with ruffled bedding, a white rocking chair in the corner, and a shelf lined with children's books. My stomach clenched. Blair clasped her hands. "Isn't it sweet? I thought it could be for future nieces, or for when your baby visits." My baby, in a room bought with the money meant to protect her. Blair tilted her head. "Unless you are still mad about the shower thing." The casual cruelty of it nearly knocked the air from my lungs. "The shower thing?" Camille said. Blair's eyes flicked to her. "I was speaking to my sister." I placed one hand on my belly. "I should get some water." Downstairs, a small crowd had gathered near the living room. Someone tapped a glass. Blair floated into the center of the room with my mother beside her, both of them glowing under the photographer's attention. "I just want to say something," Blair began, her voice already trembling in that practiced way that made people lean in. "This home is more than walls. It is proof that after pain, after abandonment, after being made to feel like too much, you can still receive what you deserve." My mother wiped at her eyes. My father looked proud. Guests murmured support. Blair lifted her glass. "This house proves that when you believe you deserve more, life gives you more." People applauded. I stood beside Jonah's sister and watched strangers clap inside a house built on his death benefit. That was when a man I recognized from photos approached me quietly. Theo Maddox, Blair's ex-fiancé, the real estate agent she had cried about for months after he called off their wedding. He was taller than I expected, with tired eyes and the uneasy posture of someone who regretted coming but had needed to see something for himself. "Mrs. Ellis," he said softly. "Marin," he nodded. "Theo Maddox?" "I know." His mouth tightened. I figured. Camille stepped closer. "Why are you here?" "I was invited before everything with Blair fully ended," he said, "and because I needed to confirm something." "What?" His eyes moved toward Blair, who was now accepting hugs near the fireplace. Then he looked back at me. "Ask for the closing statement," he said. My pulse changed. Theo lowered his voice further. "And do not let your father tell you the gift letter was harmless." The words hit me one at a time. Closing statement, gift letter, my father. "What gift letter, Shulk?" I asked. Theo's expression told me he had already feared I would say that. "I should not say more here," he said. "But I backed out for a reason. Money appeared in the transaction in a way that did not make sense. Blair said it was family help. Then she said it was from you. Then she said you were too emotional to remember agreeing." Camille whispered something obscene. Theo glanced toward the kitchen. "I saved what I could. Texts, some emails. I can send them to your attorney if you have one." "I do." "Good," he said. "Use her. Do not do this alone." Before I could ask anything else, Blair called his name from across the room. Her voice was bright, but her eyes were sharp. "Theo, are you bothering my sister?" He stepped back. "No, just saying hello." Blair came toward us, smiling with every part of her face except her eyes. How sweet. Isn't it wonderful when people can stay supportive even after things change? Theo looked at her for a long second. "Some things do change when paperwork gets reviewed." The color drained from her face so quickly I almost missed it. Then my mother appeared. "What is going on?" Claudia asked. "Nothing," I said. The words sounded innocent. My mother searched my face. For the first time in my life, I did not help her read me. I left 10 minutes later. By Monday afternoon, Priya had the closing file. She called me on video because she said there were things she did not want to summarize by text. Her face appeared on my laptop screen, composed but serious. Marin, the closing file includes a gift letter. I sat down slowly. From me? Yes. It claims you voluntarily gifted Blair Sutton $125,000 for the down payment on her home. The room went silent around me. I did not sign that. I know. She shared her screen. The letter was short, polite, horrifying. It stated that I, Marin Ellis, had given my sister Blair Sutton $125,000 as a gift, not a loan, with no expectation of repayment. It referenced family support during a period of grief and transition. It was dated 2 days after the secondary distribution authorization. At the bottom was my signature. Again. This time, it was not electronic. It was an image of a handwritten signature pasted into the document. My body recognized it before my mind did. That is from a condolence card, I whispered. Priya looked up. What? I covered my mouth. After Jonah's funeral, I had written thank you cards to people who sent flowers. My mother had insisted on taking some to mail for me because, she said, I needed rest. One of them had gone to an old family friend. I remembered because I had written it at my parents' kitchen table. I remembered signing my name while crying. I remembered my mother hovering near me, collecting envelopes. That signature, I said. It is from one of the cards I wrote after the funeral. They copied it. Priya's expression hardened. Are you certain? Yes. That night, my mother posted again. No names. She was too careful for names. Some daughters become cruel when grief makes them jealous of joy. A mother's heart breaks when one child cannot celebrate another's healing. By morning, 3 relatives had liked it. 2 had commented with prayer hands. One aunt wrote, "You have always tried your best with both girls." Both girls? Always both girls. One grieving, one stealing. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. I saw your face at the party. Please do not embarrass this family because you are struggling. I looked at the message for a long time. Then I screenshotted it, saved it to the evidence folder, and sent it to Priya. For the first time, I understood that my mother was not simply defending Blair. She was preparing the audience. She was teaching people to doubt me before I ever opened my mouth. By the time my mother posted about grief-making daughters cruel, the story had already started moving without me. The first text came from my Aunt Denise before I had even finished breakfast. Honey, I know you are hurting, but please do not ruin this for Blair. She has waited so long to feel stable. I stared at the message while sitting at the kitchen table in Jonah's old sweatshirt, a bowl of oatmeal untouched in front of me. My daughter shifted under my ribs, and I pressed one hand there as if I could shield her from words on a screen. I did not respond. I took a screenshot, saved it to the folder, and forwarded it to Priya. The second message came from a cousin I saw twice a year. Your parents are grieving too. People forget that. Jonah was part of the family. I almost threw the phone. Jonah was part of the family. Jonah, who had helped my father repair the garage door without being asked. Jonah, who brought my mother flowers on Mother's Day because he knew I would be guilted if we arrived empty-handed. Jonah, who once drove Blair to urgent care at midnight because she had convinced herself a headache was a tumor. Jonah had been useful to them, which in my family was the closest thing to being loved. But now that he was dead, his protection had become available. By noon, I had 7 messages. Don't let grief harden your heart. Your mom is worried sick. Blair is finally happy. Let her have this. Pregnancy hormones are making you paranoid. That last one sat in my chest like a lit match. pregnancy hormones, not forged authorization, not stolen insurance money, not a fake gift letter, hormones. I forwarded every message to Priya, then put my phone face down on the table and walked to the nursery. The room was still unfinished. Jonah's half-assembled crib waited in the center like a promise interrupted. Paint samples were taped to the wall in 3 shades of yellow because he had insisted there was a difference between buttercream, honey, and morning sun. My mother called at 2:30. I let it go to voicemail. She called again, then my father, then Blair. Then my mother sent a text. "We need to talk before you make this worse." I screenshotted it. At 4 o'clock, Claudia posted a video. Lacey was the one who warned me. "Do not watch it alone," she texted. Of course I watched it alone. My mother sat in her car because apparently public emotional collapse required good natural lighting. Her eyes were red, her hair was pulled back softly. She wore the pearl earrings Jonah had given her the first Christmas after we were married, which made my whole body go cold. She did not say my name. She did not need to. I have always believed a mother's job is to love all her children through every season, she began, voice trembling. But sometimes grief changes people. Sometimes loss makes someone suspicious, angry, and unable to see joy without feeling attacked by it. I watched without blinking. "Our family has been through so much," she continued. "We lost someone we loved dearly. And now, when we should be coming together, I am watching one daughter punish another for trying to rebuild her life." Punish. Blair had bought a house with money stolen from Jonah's policy, and I was punishing her. My mother took a shaky breath. "I am worried. I am truly worried. Because when someone is grieving and pregnant, emotions can become bigger than reality. Judgment can be affected, and all I can do is pray that love wins before permanent damage is done." The video ended with her pressing a tissue to her mouth. Within an hour, relatives were commenting beneath it. "You are such a strong mama. Praying for your family. Grief is so complicated. She will come around. She, me." I sent the video link to Priya. Then I called Lacey and cried so hard I could not speak for almost a full minute. "I am coming over," she said. "No. Marin, no. If you come over, I will fall apart, and I cannot fall apart right now. You are allowed to fall apart." "I know," I whispered. "I just do not know if I will be able to put myself back together before they use it." That was the trap. My family had built it perfectly. If I reacted, I was unstable. If I stayed silent, they controlled the story. If I defended myself, I was attacking Blair. If I cried, I was hormonal. If I stayed calm, I was cold. There was no version of me they could not twist. Priya called that evening. "I saw the video," she said. "Can they do that? They can post vague emotional content, but when vague content is part of a pattern used to discredit you in relation to a financial dispute, we document it. Is it defamation? Potentially. But I am more concerned about the phrase judgment can be affected. Why? Because they are laying groundwork." I sat very still. For what? For the argument that you are not thinking clearly, that you authorize things and forgot, that you are confused by grief, that your pregnancy makes you unreliable. If this escalates, they may try to position any legal action you take as emotional instability. My hand moved automatically to my stomach. "My baby," I said. "Possibly," Priya said gently. "We do not assume, but we prepare." The next day, my father came to my house. He did not ask. He texted when he was already in the driveway. "Open the door." We need to speak like adults. I opened the door but did not step aside. Warren stood on the porch in a gray coat, his jaw tight. He looked older than he had at Blair's housewarming, not guilty, not sorry, just irritated that events had refused to stay where he put them. "You are upsetting your mother," he said. No hello, no how are you feeling, no apology for missing the shower. I kept one hand on the door frame. "That is not why you are here." His eyes narrowed. "You have been talking to an attorney." I said nothing. "That is a mistake, Marin." "Then you should not have given me a reason to need one." His face flushed. "You do not understand what you are doing." "I understand more than you hoped I would." He glanced past my shoulder into the house, toward the framed photo of Jonah on the hallway table. His voice lowered. "Your mother and I did what was best for this family." "What family?" I asked. His mouth tightened. "Do not play word games." Jonah's policy was for me and my daughter. It was more complicated than that. "No, Dad, you made it complicated because simple would have made you a thief." His expression changed. There it was, the real him. "You need to listen carefully, Lisa," he said. "I am listening. If you keep acting unstable, people may wonder whether you can handle a baby alone." The world narrowed. All the noise disappeared. The street, the birds, the distant sound of a lawnmower. Even my own breathing seemed to stop. I looked at my father, really looked at him, and understood that there are moments when love does not die slowly. Sometimes it leaves all at once. "What did you just say?" I asked. He lifted his chin, mistaking my quiet for fear. "I said you need to think about how this looks. Widowed, emotional, isolated, making accusations, refusing family support. People may start asking whether you are prepared for motherhood under these conditions." My hand tightened around the edge of the door. "You are threatening custody of my unborn child because I found out you stole from her dead father." He flinched, but only at the clarity of the sentence. "I am warning you about consequences." "No," I said. "You are giving me evidence." His eyes flicked down. That was when he saw my phone in my other hand. Recording. I had started it when I opened the door. Not because I was clever, because Priya had told me, if they show up, record if your state allows it. You are in a one-party consent state. Use that. My father stepped back. "Marin." I smiled for the first time in days, and it felt nothing like happiness. "Leave." I closed the door in his face and locked it. Then I slid down against the wall and shook so hard my teeth chattered. Within minutes, the recording was in Priya's inbox. Her response came quickly. "This is important. Do not engage further. I am contacting the insurer's fraud department today." That was how Graham Holt entered my life. He called 2 days later from the insurance company's special investigations unit. His voice was professional, slightly gravelly, and careful in the way people sound when every sentence might become part of a file. "Mrs. Ellis, my name is Graham Holt. I am reviewing irregularities connected to your late husband's policy distribution. I understand you are represented by counsel." "Yes. I will coordinate directly with Ms. Callan where appropriate, but I wanted to confirm that our office has opened a formal fraud review." Formal fraud review. I wrote the words on a notepad because they felt like a bridge out of madness. Graham asked whether I had authorized the secondary distribution. I said no. He asked whether I had created or approved the Sutton Family Protection Reserve. I said no. He asked whether Warren Sutton had permission to act as my legal representative. I said no. Then he asked one question that made my stomach twist. "Did you at any point provide Mr. Sutton access to your identification documents, electronic signature files, or claim portal credentials?" I looked toward the kitchen table where my father had once sat with his folder and legal pad. "Yes," I said, because he told me he was helping. Graham was quiet for a beat. Then he said, "That is often how these cases happen." After the call, I walked into the bedroom and opened the closet where I kept Jonah's things. For months, I had avoided the top shelf. That was where I put the box from his office after Camille brought it over. His company badge, a few notebooks, his favorite pens, a stress ball shaped like a heart because he worked in healthcare software and thought it was funny, old receipts, a sealed envelope with my name written on it. I'd seen it before. I had not opened it, not because I did not care, because seeing his handwriting felt like touching a live wire. That day, I took it down. Marin, he had written across the front. Just my name. I sat on the bed, held the envelope for a long time, and finally tore it open. Inside was one page. My hands shook as I unfolded it. Mar, if you are reading this, then I am not there to annoy you about passwords, emergency funds, and whether the smoke detectors have batteries. I hate that. I hate imagining you having to do any of this without me. But I need you to hear me. You are allowed to protect yourself without apologizing. You are allowed to make decisions that disappoint people who benefit from your confusion. You are allowed to say no even when someone calls it selfish. The insurance, the accounts, the planning, all of it is for you and for any child we may have someday. Not because money fixes grief, it does not, but because protection matters when the person who wanted to stand beside you cannot. If I am not here, do not let anyone convince you my protection was theirs to spend. I love you. I love the life we made. And if there's a little Ellis someday, tell them their dad was boring about paperwork because he loved them before he met them. Jonah. I pressed the letter against my chest. For a moment, I could not breathe. Then the sound came out of me. Not a pretty cry, not movie grief. It was ugly, animal, and deep enough to scare me. I folded forward over my stomach, holding Jonah's letter between my palms, and sobbed into the quiet bedroom until my throat hurt. My daughter kicked. I laughed through the crying because it felt like she was answering him. He loved you, I whispered to her, before he met you. That was the moment everything changed. Not because I stopped grieving. I did not. Not because I stopped wanting parents. Some wounds keep wanting impossible things. But sitting there with Jonah's words in my hands, I understood that my revenge could not be about making my family sorry. They were not sorry. It had to be about making them unable to steal more, unable to rewrite the truth, unable to touch my daughter's future and call it love. Priya's office did not look like the kind of place where families came apart. The building was quiet, all glass walls and soft carpet, with a receptionist who spoke in a voice gentle enough to make me want to cry. There were plants by the windows, a bowl of wrapped peppermints on the front desk, abstract art in muted blues along the hallway. Nothing about it looked violent, but that was where Priya Callan began laying my family's violence across a conference table in neat, labeled stacks. On the wall behind her was a whiteboard. By the time she was done, my life was written on it in black marker. Jonah Ellis life insurance payout, secondary distribution authorization, Sutton Family Protection Reserve, Blair House closing, gift letter, electronic signature logs, family communications, public smear pattern, threat regarding parenting capacity. Each line looked clinical, manageable. Like this was not my dead husband, my unborn daughter, my parents, my sister, my grief. Priya capped the marker and turned to me. I know this will be difficult to see organized this way. I want to see it. Good, she said, because confusion protects them. Structure protects you. The certified insurance records showed the original payout amount clearly: $380,000. $250,000 went into the trust account my father had helped me create. The one he wanted me to see, the one that made it look like everything was moving normally. $130,000 went into the Sutton Family Protection Reserve. That account was opened 12 days before the transfer, Priya said. By my father? By your father as primary signatory. Your mother is listed as an authorized user. I stared at the highlighted page she slid toward me. Warren Sutton, Claudia Sutton, not me, never me. The account name was almost worse than the theft itself. Sutton Family Protection Reserve. They had taken Jonah's protection for the Ellis family and renamed it after themselves. Priya continued. From there, the money did not sit long. She placed another document on the table. Bank movement summary. $85,000 wired toward Blair's home purchase. $25,000 applied to a credit card account ending in 4 numbers Priya had confirmed belonged to Blair. $7,800 paid to a furniture retailer, $4,200 to an event company, $3,600 to something called Sol Renewal Wellness Retreat. Priya tapped that line. Registered under Claudia Sutton. My mouth went dry. My mother took a healing retreat? 4 days. Private grief package. I laughed once. It sounded wrong in the quiet room. A grief package. My mother had funded a grief retreat with money from Jonah's death benefit while I was sleeping beside his sweatshirt and trying to survive prenatal appointments without his hand in mine. There is more, Priya said gently. Of course there was. The final transfer was $9,000 to a tax payment portal connected to Warren Sutton. My father's overdue taxes, I said. Priya did not look surprised that I understood. It appears so. I leaned back in the chair, both hands over my stomach. They used all of it, I said. Almost all. A small balance remains, but the majority was distributed within 10 days. 10 days. My husband had spent years paying premiums, so I would have time, safety, breathing room, and choices. My family burned through a third of it in 10 days. The title company records confirmed Theo's warning. Blair's mortgage file included a gift letter claiming I had voluntarily given her $125,000. The lender accepted it as proof that the money was not a loan. The letter included my name, my address, and a signature copied from somewhere else. Priya had managed to locate the source faster than I expected, not because my mother confessed, because she had kept the card. Months earlier, after Jonah's funeral, my mother had taken several condolence thank you cards from me, supposedly to mail them. One of them had been addressed to a family friend named Margaret Lewis. Priya contacted Margaret carefully and asked whether she still had the card. She did. Margaret, horrified, sent a scan. There was my signature at the bottom. Marin. Same shape. Same pressure. Same slight downward slant in the final letter. The forged gift letter used that exact image. My mother had stolen my signature from a note I wrote thanking someone for mourning my husband. For a while, I could not speak. Finally, I said, "She must have watched me sign it." "Yes." She probably stood right there and thought it would be useful. Priya's expression softened. "I am sorry." "What about Theo?" I asked. Priya opened another folder. He provided a voluntary statement. Theo's statement described being involved in Blair's home search before their engagement ended. He said Blair had been anxious about qualifying for the house because her savings were low and her debt load was higher than she had admitted. He said money appeared suddenly during the transaction, and when he asked where it came from, Blair gave inconsistent explanations. First, she called it family help. Then she said, "My parents had arranged it. Then she said I had offered because Maren knows she has more than enough now. More than enough. That was what she called widowhood with a life insurance policy. Priya pointed to the attached screenshots. Theo saved texts. I looked down. The first message from Blair read, Dad says the insurance situation is basically handled. Maren is overwhelmed and won't care as long as she has enough for the baby. Another read, she owes us after everything Mom and Dad have done for her. Jonah would have wanted family taken care of. My chest tightened so sharply I had to shift in the chair. Jonah would have wanted family taken care of. They kept putting words in a dead man's mouth because he could not spit them back. Then another text. Once the house closes, she can't undo it without looking insane. I stopped breathing. Priya watched me carefully. Do you need a break? No, because there it was. Not confusion, not misunderstanding, not Blair innocently benefiting from something my parents had done behind her back. She knew. She knew before the house closed. She knew I had not freely given her anything. She knew the plan depended on making me look irrational if I fought back. My sister had not accidentally walked into a blessing. She had planned her public happiness around my silence. Graham Holt had pulled internal notes and email records involving my father. There were several messages from Warren Sutton to a claims contact. He had represented himself not as my legal agent exactly, but as a family advisor assisting a bereaved beneficiary. The phrase made me sick. Bereaved beneficiary. That was me, reduced again. Not a person, a weakness to be managed. One email from my father stood out because Graham had flagged it in yellow. Maren is emotionally overwhelmed and has asked me to help manage the distribution details. Please advise whether a family reserve can be designated for support expenses related to her transition. Priya let me read it twice. Did you ever ask him to create a family reserve? She asked, though we both knew the answer. No. Did you ever authorize him in writing to manage distribution? No. Did you ever tell him you were unable to manage your own finances? No. The next email was worse. My father asked if electronic authorization would be sufficient because, according to him, I was having difficulty handling calls and forms due to pregnancy-related emotional distress. I remembered that week. I had been sick, exhausted, and crying every morning because the crib had arrived without Jonah there to carry the box inside. But I had not been incapable. I had been grieving. My father turned grief into a credential for theft. Then came my mother's role. Attached to one of my father's emails was a draft memo in a Word document. Its metadata listed Claudia Sutton as the original author. The title was Family Protection Language. Priya opened it on the screen. Suggested wording: family support obligations, bereavement care, household transition, protective reserve, emotional overwhelm, avoid terms that sound like shared inheritance, keep language soft enough that Maren won't question it. I read that final line until it burned into me. Keep language soft enough that Maren won't question it. My mother knew exactly who I was. That was the horror of it. She knew I was more likely to trust a phrase that sounded like care. She knew I had spent my whole life responding to softness, to guilt, to the illusion of being protected. She knew that if the theft arrived wrapped in concern, I might not look underneath until it was too late. And she was almost right. Priya closed the document. I want to be very clear, she said. This is significant. I looked at the whiteboard, at all the lines, at my life mapped as fraud. Significant enough for charges? I am not a prosecutor, but significant enough that the insurer is treating this as suspected fraud, and significant enough for civil action. Potential criminal referrals may follow. The words should have shocked me more than they did. Instead, what shocked me was how calm I felt. Underneath the pain, beneath the nausea and rage and humiliation, There was a strange steadiness. My family had spent my whole life making me doubt my perception. This folder did the opposite. It confirmed me. It put dates under instincts. It gave numbers to betrayal. It turned the fog into a map. Priya moved to the final section, preservation. Formal notices had been sent to my parents, Blair, the title company, the lender, and relevant financial institutions. They were required to preserve records, emails, texts, bank statements, closing documents, electronic devices, social media posts, voicemails, and any communications related to Jonah's policy, the Sutton Reserve account, and Blair's home purchase. Will that scare them? I asked. Yes. Good. The word came out before I could make it polite. The first preservation notice reached my parents on a Thursday. I knew because my mother called me 6 times in 20 minutes. I did not answer. Then my father called. Then Blair. Then my mother again. Then a text arrived from Claudia. What have you done? For 32 years, that question had worked on me. What have you done to upset your sister? What have you done to make your father so quiet? What have you done to make this family feel unsafe? It was never what had been done to me. It was always what my reaction had disturbed. This time I took a screenshot, saved it, and sent it to Priya. No response, Priya texted back. I looked at those 2 words for a long time. No response. Not because I had nothing to say. I had enough to say that my body could barely hold it. I wanted to tell my mother she had stolen my signature from a funeral thank you card. I wanted to tell my father I knew about the account, the taxes, the emails, the language he used to make me sound incompetent. I wanted to tell Blair that every white pillow in her curated living room looked like it had been stuffed with Jonah's absence. But Priya was right. Evidence first, emotions later. For 2 days, nothing public happened. Then Blair announced the second event. She called it Blessing the Home. I saw the post while standing in the baby aisle at Target, holding 2 brands of newborn diapers and wondering how Jonah would have turned diaper comparison into a research project. My phone buzzed. Lacey had sent me a screenshot with one sentence. You need to see this, but not alone. I opened it anyway. Blair's post featured a professionally edited photo from her housewarming party. She stood in the living room beneath the neon sign that said, "She is becoming," hands clasped at her chest, face lifted toward a window as if God himself had personally approved her mortgage. The caption read, "After so much noise, jealousy, and misunderstanding, I am choosing peace." Next Sunday, I am opening my home for a small blessing ceremony with family, neighbors, and friends who believe women deserve safe spaces to begin again. A local lifestyle writer will be joining us to tell the story of healing after hardship. I will not let bitterness steal my joy. A local lifestyle writer, I read it again. She was turning the stolen house into a feature. My sister had not learned fear from the preservation notice. She had learned urgency. If the truth was coming, she wanted the myth published first. I called Priya from the parking lot. She is inviting press, I said. I saw. Of course she had. Priya had alerts set up for public posts now, which should have felt excessive, but instead made me feel protected. What do? We move. By Monday morning, Priya had prepared an emergency asset preservation motion. By Tuesday, she filed a civil complaint naming my father, my mother, and Blair in connection with fraudulent misrepresentation, conversion, identity misuse, and the forged gift letter. She also sent formal notice to the title company and lender that Blair's down payment was under dispute as proceeds of a suspected fraudulent insurance distribution. Graham Holt's side moved too. The insurance company escalated its fraud review and issued its own internal hold on any remaining claim activity connected to my file. Graham told Priya they were preparing a referral packet with the forged authorization, IP records, identity verification trail, and Warren's communications. He also requested the recording of my father threatening to question my fitness as a mother. Priya asked me to come to her office that afternoon to review what she called my public statement. "I am not giving a speech," I said. "You may need to say something." "To who?" "To the room." I did not ask which room. We both knew. Blair had invited cameras because she thought public sympathy was armor. Priya intended to show her it could become a cage. When I arrived, Priya had printed my draft statement and marked it with a red pen so thoroughly it looked injured. "This is too emotional," she said. "It is my husband's life insurance money." "I know. That is why it must be precise." She slid a revised version across the desk. It was shorter, cleaner, almost cold. My husband's death was not a family account. Jonah Ellis made that policy to protect his wife and child. I did not authorize a secondary distribution to the Sutton Family Protection Reserve. I did not gift funds to Blair Sutton for the purchase of this home. The documents saying otherwise are disputed as fraudulent and are now part of an active legal and insurance investigation. I read it twice. It did not sound like me. Maybe that was the point. It sounded like someone who could not be dismissed as hysterical. The performance began sooner than expected. That night, my mother called from a blocked number. I knew I should not answer. Priya had told me not to answer unknown calls, especially after business hours, because panic makes people useful to their enemies. But I was tired. I was pregnant. I was lonely in a way that made me vulnerable to the sound of my own mother's breathing. So I answered. I did not speak first. "Marin?" Claudia said. Her voice was small, not angry, not dramatic. Small in the exact way she knew reached the child still buried inside me. "You need to stop," she whispered. "Please, before this destroys everyone." Still, I said nothing. My mother began to cry, softly at first, then with little broken breaths between words. "I know you are hurt. I know you miss Jonah. We all do. But you are letting strangers turn you against your blood. Priya does not love you. That insurance man does not love you. They are using your grief to make a case. We are your family." Family. The oldest trap. I opened my laptop silently, clicked the recording app Priya had installed, and let my mother keep talking. "You can still fix this," she said. "How?" I asked. She exhaled, relieved that I had finally given her something. "You make a statement." "What kind of statement?" "A simple one. You say there has been confusion. You say you did gift the money, but grief made everything feel unclear. You say Blair's house is not part of any dispute. You say your parents have only ever tried to support you." My hand went cold on the mouse. "You want me to publicly say I gifted Blair the money?" "Yes, even though I did not." "Marin," the softness thinned, "this is not the time to be rigid." "And if I do not?" I asked. The crying stopped. For a moment, my mother was silent, and when she spoke again, the small voice was gone. "Then people will know exactly what kind of mother you are before the baby arrives." I stared at the screen. There are sentences that do not wound because they surprise you. They wound because they confirm the thing you had been begging yourself not to believe. "What kind of mother is that?" I asked. "A bitter one," she said. "A vindictive one. A woman so consumed by jealousy that she would rather tear apart her own family than let her sister have a home. You stole from my dead husband." "No," she snapped. "We redistributed support within the family." I almost laughed. "Is that what you are calling forgery now?" My mother inhaled sharply. That was the first time I had said it directly. Forgery. The word sat between us like a weapon placed on the table. You are confused, she said. No, I am recording. The line went silent. Then Claudia whispered, You wouldn't. I did. She hung up. For a few seconds, I sat perfectly still. Then my whole body began to shake. Not from fear this time, from release. Because my mother had finally said the quiet part in a voice someone else could hear. The next few days passed in legal motion. Emergency filings, exhibits, declarations, certified records, a process server arranged for the day of Blair's blessing ceremony because Priya believed timing mattered. Not for drama, she insisted, but because asset preservation was urgent, and because Blair was actively using the event to shape a false public narrative around disputed property. Theo agreed to attend as a witness. Graham Holt would also attend, though not as law enforcement. Priya was clear about that. He was an insurance fraud investigator with documentation authority, not a cop with handcuffs. There would be a court process server, a copy of the emergency order if granted in time, and formal notices restricting the sale, transfer, refinancing, or destruction of records related to the house. The night before the blessing ceremony, I could not sleep. I sat in the nursery in the dim glow of the little moon lamp Lacey had bought me. The crib was finished now. The yellow socks Jonah ordered sat on the dresser beside his photo. My hospital bag was packed by the door because I was close enough to my due date that everyone kept reminding me stress was bad for the baby, as if the solution was to let my family keep stolen money politely. I read my statement aloud 3 times. My husband's death was not a family account. The first time my voice broke. The second time it shook. The third time it held. Then I added the line that mattered most. Jonah Ellis made that policy to protect his wife and child. I touched my stomach. I am going to protect us, I whispered. My daughter kicked once, strong and certain. The next morning, my mother sent one final text. Last chance to be family. I looked at it for a long time. Then I screenshotted it, saved it, and sent it to Priya. By noon, I was dressed in black, my hair pulled back, Jonah's pearls in my ears. Camille drove. Lacey wanted to come, but Priya said too many emotional supporters could make the event look like an ambush. Camille was enough. She carried Jonah's absence differently than anyone else. She had the same eyes as him. As we turned onto Blair Street, cars lined both sides again, more than at the housewarming. There were white balloons tied to the porch railing. A welcome sign near the walkway read, "Bless this home with love." Camille parked, looked at the house, then looked at me. "You do not have to do this perfectly," she said. "You only have to tell the truth." Across the street, Priya stepped out of her car in a navy suit holding a leather folder. Graham Holt stood beside her, expression unreadable. Theo waited near the curb, pale but present. A man Priya had identified as the process server checked his watch. Inside the house, I could hear laughter. Blair had invited cameras because she thought grief made me weak. She forgot grief also leaves records. Blair's house looked even more unreal the second time. The first housewarming had been soft, expensive, and staged. But this was something else. This was not a party. It was a production. White balloons framed the porch in an arch. Fresh flowers spilled from tall urns on both sides of the red door. Through the windows, I could see people moving around inside with champagne glasses, pale dresses, soft sweaters, and the careful smiles of guests who believed they had been invited to witness healing. A small sign near the walkway read, "Bless this home with love." Love. That word had become almost unbearable to me. People used it for everything. For guilt, for theft, for silence, for obedience, for looking away. My mother said love when she meant compliance. My father said family when he meant control. Blair said healing when she meant getting away with it. I stood on the sidewalk with one hand resting on my stomach and tried to breathe past the pressure in my ribs. You ready? Priya asked. No, I was not ready to walk into a room where my mother would cry on command, my father would posture like an offended patriarch, and my sister would wear stolen comfort like a white dress. But ready did not matter anymore. My husband's death was not a family account, I whispered. Priya nodded once. That is all you need to remember. Then we walked up the path. The front door was open, because of course it was. Blair wanted the house to feel welcoming. She wanted neighbors and relatives and followers to flow in and out, admiring the life she had built. Inside, the air smelled like peonies, vanilla candles, and chilled wine. Soft instrumental music played from hidden speakers. The photographer from the first party was there again, along with a woman holding a notepad and wearing wide-leg linen pants. The lifestyle writer, I assumed. Blair stood near the fireplace beneath the neon sign. She is becoming. This time she wore a cream dress with long sleeves and a gold belt over her waist. Her hair was pinned back with pearl clips. She looked polished, serene, almost bridal. My mother stood near her with one hand over her heart, introducing herself to guests as if she were the guardian of something sacred. I am Claudia, I heard her say warmly to a neighbor. Blair's mother, and soon-to-be grandmother. Our family has been through so much, but love has kept us together. My entire body went cold. Soon-to-be grandmother. She had threatened my fitness as a mother, tried to pressure me into lying, and now she was using my unborn daughter as part of her public performance. My father saw us first. Warren was standing near the kitchen island with a glass of sparkling water in his hand. His eyes found mine, then moved to Priya, then Graham, then the process server. His expression changed so fast that only someone who knew him well would have caught it. The smile disappeared for half a second. Fear flickered underneath. Then he set down his glass and started toward us. Marin, he said, voice low, this is not the time. I did not answer. Priya stepped slightly in front of me. Mr. Sutton? His eyes narrowed. You should be ashamed of yourself, dragging a pregnant woman into this. Priya's face did not move. I represent her. You are exploiting her grief. I have heard that phrase several times now, Priya said. It remains untrue. The room began to notice. Conversation softened. Heads turned. My mother looked over, and for one full second, her face emptied of all expression. Then she became wounded again. Marin? Claudia called, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. Honey, what is this? Blair turned from the fireplace. The moment she saw Theo, her mouth tightened. The moment she saw Graham, color drained from her cheeks. But she recovered quickly. Blair always recovered quickly when there was an audience. She smiled, fragile and radiant. Everyone, please give my sister some grace. She has been under terrible stress. There it was, the opening move, grace. As if I had stumbled in confused, as if this were another emotional episode they had expected and prepared everyone to forgive. My mother crossed the room toward me with both hands extended. Marin, sweetheart, you should have called before coming. This is overwhelming for you. I stepped back before she could touch me. A tiny gasp moved through the room. My mother froze, eyes wet instantly. I had seen her do that my entire life. Tears on command, soft hurt, a little tremble in the mouth. It used to make me panic. It used to make me apologize before I even knew what I had done. This time, I looked at her and felt nothing move except my daughter under my hand. That is what I asked for when my husband died, I said clearly. Grace. The room went completely quiet. What I received, I continued, was a forged signature. Blair laughed once. Too sharp, too loud. Okay, this is exactly what we were worried about. Priya opened her folder. Before anyone comments further, she said, my client is here regarding formal legal notices connected to this property, disputed funds used in its purchase, and documents submitted under her name without authorization. The lifestyle writer stopped writing, then slowly started again. My father took a step forward. This is a private family matter. No, Priya said. It is an active insurance fraud review and civil dispute involving real property. Those words changed the room. Active, fraud, civil dispute, real property. People who had been ready to pity my family suddenly looked at the walls, the furniture, the catered trays, the flowers, as if the house itself had started speaking a different language. Blair's eyes flashed. You are not doing this in my home. That is part of the issue, Priya said. Graham Holt stepped forward then. He did not raise his voice. He did not need to. My name is Graham Holt. I am with the insurance carrier's Special Investigations Unit. I am here to deliver formal notice that claim documents connected to Jonah Ellis's policy are under review for suspected fraud. Someone near the kitchen whispered, "Oh my God." My mother pressed a hand to her chest. This is cruel. I looked at her. No, Mom. Cruel was asking me to lie so Blair could keep a house bought with stolen money. Her eyes widened. My father's jaw clenched. Marin. Priya turned to the process server. Now. He stepped toward Blair first. Blair Sutton? Blair stared at him like he had materialized from the floor. You have been served. He placed the documents in her hands. She did not take them, so they slid against her palms and nearly fell. Then my father. Warren Sutton? My father's face went red. This is harassment. You have been served. Then Claudia. She looked at the packet like it was dirty. I will not accept this, she said. You have been served, the man replied. The photographer lowered his camera. The lifestyle writer stood perfectly still. The guests seemed divided between wanting to leave and wanting to witness every second. Blair recovered first. She thrust the papers onto a side table. This is insane. Marin is grieving. She has been confused for months. Everyone knows that. She is jealous because I finally have something good. Theo spoke from near the doorway. No, Blair. Every head turned. Blair looked at him with pure hatred. Do not. Theo stepped forward slowly. You knew there was a problem with the money before closing. That is not true. You told me it came from Marin's insurance situation. My sister's face tightened. You told me she had more than enough, Theo continued. You told me once the house closed, she could not undo it without looking insane. Blair's lips parted. My mother snapped. Theo, you are a bitter man trying to punish a woman who moved on. Theo looked at her. I left because she lied about money. I stayed quiet because I thought it was messy family help. Then I found out who the money belonged to. His eyes moved to me, then to my stomach. I am sorry, he said. I believed him. Not because sorry fixed anything, but because his shame did not ask me to comfort it. Priya walked to the living room television. Before the event, she had told me she would not make a spectacle unless they forced the narrative publicly. Blair had done exactly that. The live stream had already started before we arrived. I noticed it now. Blair's phone mounted near the flower arrangement, angled toward the living room. Blair noticed where I was looking and lunged for the phone. Graham spoke first. Do not delete anything. She froze. Priya connected her laptop to the television with the kind of calm that made the room even tenser. My father moved toward her. You cannot just show private documents in my daughter's home. Priya looked at him. These documents are already exhibits in emergency filings, and your daughter invited a writer and live streamed the event while publicly accusing my client of jealousy and instability. We will be brief. The screen lit up. First came the payout summary. Jonah Ellis, life insurance death benefit, $380,000. Seeing Jonah's name enlarged on that beautiful television in that stolen living room nearly broke me. I felt Camille move closer, her shoulder touching mine. Priya spoke clearly. Jonah Ellis maintained a life insurance policy naming his wife, Maren Ellis, as primary beneficiary. The stated purpose, according to estate planning communications, was the protection of his surviving spouse and child. Next slide. Distribution breakdown. $250,000 to trust account, $130,000 to Sutton Family Protection Reserve. Murmurs moved through the room. My mother whispered, "Stop this." Priya did not. Next slide. Secondary distribution authorization. My electronic signature appeared at the bottom. Priya said, "Maren Ellis denies signing this authorization." Next slide. IP access log, location associated with Warren and Claudia Sutton's residence. Someone near the stairs said, "Warren?" My father's face hardened. IP logs are not proof of anything. No, Priya said. They are one part of a record. Next slide. Bank movement summary, $85,000 to Blair Sutton home purchase, $25,000 to Blair Sutton credit card, $7,800 to furniture retailer, $4,200 to housewarming event company, $3,600 to Sol Renewal Wellness Retreat under Claudia Sutton, $9,000 to tax payment portal connected to Warren Sutton. The room changed again. Before that moment, I think some people still wanted to believe this was confusion, a grieving widow, an unclear gift, a family misunderstanding. But numbers have a brutality that emotion does not. Numbers do not cry. They do not perform. They sit there, exact and indifferent. Blair's face twisted. That is taken out of context. I looked at her. What is the context for using my husband's death benefit to buy throw pillows? She flinched. Priya moved on. Next slide. Closing statement. Next slide. Gift letter. I, Maren Ellis, voluntarily gift Blair Sutton $125,000. My signature at the bottom, the fake one. Priya said, Maren Ellis denies signing this gift letter. Next slide. Signature comparison. On the left, the condolence thank you card sent after Jonah's funeral. On the right, the signature from the gift letter. They matched perfectly. My mother made a small sound. Not grief. Fear. I looked at her and remembered her standing over me at the kitchen table while I wrote those cards, touching my shoulder, telling me she would mail them so I could rest. You copied it from a funeral card, I said. Claudia's eyes filled. I was trying to keep the family together. No, I said. You were trying to keep me quiet. Next slide. Theo's text records. Dad says the insurance situation is basically handled. Maren is overwhelmed and won't care as long as she has enough for the baby. She owes us. Jonah would have wanted family taken care of. Once the house closes, she can't undo it without looking insane. The last message stayed on the screen. Blair stared at it. For once, she had no immediate tears ready. My father turned toward her slowly. You sent that? Blair's head snapped toward him. Do not start with me. Blair, my mother hissed. No, Blair snapped, voice rising. No, I am not being sacrificed because you two got sloppy. The room inhaled as one body. My father's face went gray. Priya said nothing. She did not have to. The silence collected Blair's sentence and placed it neatly beside every document. My mother recovered enough to point at me. "Look at what you are doing to your sister." I laughed then. I did not mean to. It came out once, sharp and empty. "What I am doing to her?" Blair turned on me fully, mask gone. "Yes, Marin, you always have to make everything about you. My husband died. And you got everything!" she screamed. The room went so still that even the music seemed to disappear. Blair's face was red now, her eyes wild, all softness burned away. "You got the husband. You got the business. You got the baby. You got everyone feeling sorry for you. And I was supposed to just keep being the daughter who had nothing?" I stared at her. For years, I had imagined that if Blair ever showed the truth, it would satisfy me. It did not. It was ugly, small, pathetic. A hole so deep that no house could fill it. "You think Jonah dying means I got everything?" I asked. She wiped at her face angrily. "You know what I mean." "No," I said. "I do not." My voice steadied. "Jonah wanted his daughter safe. You bought throw pillows." Blair recoiled like I had slapped her. Then Warren broke. "This was your mother's idea," he said. Claudia turned slowly. "Excuse me?" "The family protection language, the pressure, the timing. You said Marin would never question it if we made it sound like support." My mother's mouth fell open. "You handled the signatures. You told me where to find one. You said you knew how to make the electronic authorization work. You said Blair needed the house before Marin came out of the fog." "Do not put this all on me," Claudia hissed. "You used the money for your taxes. And you used it for your retreat." Blair screamed, "Stop talking!" But they could not stop. That was the thing about people who built lies together. Once the structure cracked, everyone tried to climb out through someone else's guilt. My mother pointed at my father. "You told the insurance company she was incapable. You drafted the words. You wanted the account under Sutton. You wanted Blair settled before the baby came because you were jealous Marin was giving us the first grandchild." My mother slapped him. The sound cracked through the room. Someone gasped. Graham Holt stepped forward, voice firm. "Everyone needs to stop discussing the matter in this setting." Priya disconnected her laptop. The screen went dark, but the room did not recover. Graham handed my father a sealed notice. Then my mother. Then Blair. "The insurer is cooperating with relevant authorities and preserving all claim records," he said. "You are instructed not to destroy, alter, delete, transfer, conceal, or modify any records, devices, accounts, or documents connected to this claim or the funds derived from it." My father looked like he might argue. Graham added, "Failure to preserve records may have additional consequences." Priya then lifted the final document. "The court has issued temporary restrictions related to this property pending further review. No sale, transfer, refinancing, additional liens, destruction of closing records, or dissipation of disputed assets connected to this matter." Blair blinked. "What does that mean?" Priya's voice was even. "It means this house is now evidence." Blair looked around as if the walls themselves had betrayed her. "No," she whispered. "No, this is my home." I felt no pleasure watching her crumble. That surprised me too. I had expected satisfaction, maybe even triumph, but standing there, 7 months pregnant in a living room full of flowers, watching my sister realize stolen things still belonged to the people they were stolen from, I mostly felt tired. Tired of wanting parents, tired of proving harm, tired of women like my mother using tears as smoke, tired of my sister mistaking envy for injury, tired of my father believing paperwork could make betrayal official. Blair turned to me, and for the first time that day, her voice sounded small. Where am I supposed to live? The question moved through the room like a plea. Old Marin would have felt responsible. Old Marin would have imagined Blair packing boxes alone, crying on the stairs, calling our mother, saying I had destroyed her. Old Marin would have searched for a compromise that left me bleeding quietly so everyone else could stay warm. But Old Marin had not read Jonah's letter. Old Marin had not heard her father threaten her child. Old Marin had not watched her mother turn grief into strategy. I placed one hand over my daughter and looked at my sister. I do not know, I said. My daughter's future is no longer your foundation. Blair's face collapsed. My mother whispered my name like I had become a stranger. Maybe I had. Maybe that was the first honest thing she had ever understood about me. I turned to leave. On the porch, the white balloons swayed in the breeze. Bless this home with love. I stopped for 1 second and looked back. The house was still standing. The red door still shone. The flowers still looked expensive. The furniture was still arranged perfectly. Nothing physical had collapsed. But the story underneath it had. And for the first time since Jonah died, I walked away from my family without looking back to see if they were following. The fallout did not happen all at once. That was another thing people misunderstand about justice. They imagine one dramatic moment where the truth comes out, the guilty people collapse, and the person who was hurt walks into sunlight finally free. But real consequences move through systems. They arrive in envelopes, phone calls, filings, frozen accounts, amended statements, canceled plans, and the long, humiliating silence that follows people who can no longer control the story. Blair's blessing ceremony became family legend before sunset, not because I posted about it. I did not. Priya told me to stay silent publicly. And for once, silence was not surrender. It was strategy. I let the documents speak where they needed to speak. I let the court record carry what my mother's tears had always tried to drown. But other people had been there. Neighbors, relatives, a lifestyle writer, a photographer, guests who had come expecting champagne and healing language and left after watching my parents accuse each other of forging their widowed daughter's signature. By that night, my phone was full. Some messages were apologies. Some were fishing expeditions disguised as concern. Some were from people who had judged me 3 days earlier and now wanted to pretend they had always known something felt off. Aunt Denise wrote, "Honey, I am so sorry. I did not understand the whole story. I stared at that message for a long time." "You did not ask," I wanted to reply. Instead, I sent it to Priya and did nothing. The only person I called was Camille. She came over that evening with soup, ginger tea, and a blanket Jonah had kept in the back of his car. We sat on my couch without turning on the lights. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then Camille said, "He would be proud of you." I closed my eyes. "I wish he were here to be angry instead." "He would be," she said, "but he would also be making you eat." I laughed, and then I cried, and then I ate 3 bites of soup because Jonah's sister watched me with Jonah's eyes, and I could not bear disappointing both of them. The next morning, Priya called early. "The insurer has formally referred the matter for further review," she said. "Graham's packet includes the forged authorization, the access logs, Warren's emails, Claudia's draft language, the gift letter, the signature comparison, Theo's statement, and the recordings." What does that mean for my father? It means he is under investigation for insurance fraud, identity misuse, forged authorization, and possible financial exploitation. The exact charges, if any, will depend on the authorities and evidence beyond the civil record. My father, Warren Sutton, the man who once taught me how to check tire pressure, The man who signed my report cards. The man who held a folder at my kitchen table and said, "Let your father carry this part." Now he was a name in an investigative packet. I expected to feel grief. I did, but not the kind I thought. It was not grief for losing him. I had already lost him when he threatened my child. This was grief for finally accepting that maybe the father I wanted had never been the father I had. "What about my mother?" I asked. "Claudia is exposed in both the civil matter and the fraud review. The metadata on the draft language is significant. So are the recordings and public posts." "Will crying help her?" Priya paused. "No," she said, "not in the record." Good, I thought. Then I felt guilty for thinking it. Then I let the guilt pass. Blair's situation unraveled faster than anyone expected. The lender froze internal review of the file after receiving Priya's notice and the court's temporary restrictions. The title company produced more records. Blair's mortgage broker requested clarification about the gift letter. And when my sister could not produce a clean explanation, everything around the house became toxic. She could not sell it. She could not refinance it. She could not use it as proof of abundance anymore. For weeks, she posted nothing. That silence was louder than every caption she had ever written. Then the court filings became accessible to people who knew where to look, and Blair's texts started circulating in the family. Not because I leaked them. I did not need to. People who build their identities on gossip usually know how to find documents when gossip turns against them. Once the house closes, she can't undo it without looking insane. That line destroyed her more completely than anything I could have said. Because it showed intent. It showed calculation. It showed that Blair had not been a confused younger sister accepting help. She had been betting on my grief to make me defenseless. Relatives who had defended her began quietly removing comments from my mother's posts. Then my mother deleted the crying video. Then she deleted the post about cruel daughters and jealous grief. Then she changed her profile photo from one with Blair in front of the house to a picture of flowers. As if flowers could cover what she had done. The apologies came in waves. "I'm sorry I believed your mom. I should have checked on you after the shower. I had no idea Jonah's money was involved. Your parents told everyone you were confused. We love you and the baby." That last one always made me stop. "We love you and the baby." Where had that love been when my parents missed the baby shower? Where had it been when people called me paranoid? Where had it been when my father threatened my motherhood and my mother tried to force me into a public lie? Love that arrived only after evidence did not feel like love. It felt like reputation management. Theo gave clean testimony in a sworn statement. Priya let me read it only after warning me that it might hurt. It did. Theo admitted that he had loved the version of Blair she performed at first. Wounded, romantic, misunderstood. Always on the edge of becoming better. He wrote that over time he realized she did not want a partner. She wanted an audience. She wanted a lifestyle that proved she had been wronged and therefore deserved compensation from everyone around her. He said he ended the engagement after seeing inconsistencies around the house funds, and after Blair told him during an argument that Marin's tragedy was finally useful for once. I read that sentence 3 times. Then I closed the document. For once, I did not cry. Some betrayals are so complete they cauterize the wound. The house itself became the center of the civil recovery. Priya pushed for the stolen funds to be traced, secured, and restored. The court maintained restrictions on the property while the financial trail was reviewed. Eventually, after weeks of hearings and negotiations, I was too pregnant to attend in person. The outcome became clear. Blair was not keeping the house untouched. A lien was placed against the property for recovery of the disputed funds, And when she could not satisfy it, the house was ordered into a supervised sale process. Priya warned me that recovery would not be instant. Legal fees, lender issues, and the messiness of fraud-tainted property meant nothing moved cleanly, but the important thing was this. The house could no longer stand as Blair's reward. It had become what Priya said it was. Evidence. My father tried to reach me once after that. Not by phone. Priya had already sent a formal instruction that all communication go through counsel. He mailed a letter to my house, handwritten on yellow legal paper, because apparently even then he wanted to look official. I did not open it alone. I brought it to Priya's office. She read it first, then asked if I wanted the summary or the whole thing. Summary, I said. She nodded. He says he made mistakes under pressure. He says your mother exaggerated Blair's need. He says he always intended to replace the money. He says involving investigators was unnecessary. He says Jonah would not have wanted this. I looked out the window behind her desk. Jonah would not have wanted this. They kept using his name like a spare key. No response, I said. Priya's mouth softened. Correct. My mother sent a letter too. Hers came in a pale pink envelope because Claudia Sutton could make even emotional blackmail look like a bridal shower invitation. Priya summarized that one as well. She says you are breaking a grandmother's heart. I touched my stomach. My daughter does not have a grandmother on that side. That same week, I changed everything. With Priya's help, I updated my estate documents. I created a protected trust structure for my daughter. I removed every emergency contact connected to my parents. I changed passwords, banking access, medical authorizations, and beneficiary forms. I set up guardianship instructions, naming Camille and Lacey as the people I trusted if something ever happened to me. I also made a hospital plan. No Claudia Sutton, no Warren Sutton, no Blair Sutton, no visitors without my written approval, no information released by phone. The hospital staff took it seriously. One nurse, after reviewing the restriction list, touched my arm and said, "You would be surprised how often birth brings out people who think access is a right." I would not be surprised anymore. At night, I sat in the nursery and read Jonah's letter over and over. Sometimes it comforted me. Sometimes it made me angry. Not at him, never at him, but at the fact that he had understood something I had spent years refusing to see. He knew love needed boundaries. He knew paperwork was not cold. He knew protection had to be specific, because vague love could be stolen by people with louder needs. One evening, Camille came over to help organize baby bottles, and she found me staring at the crib. "You okay?" she asked. "I keep thinking Justice should feel better." She sat beside me on the floor with a package of unopened pacifiers in her lap. "Maybe Justice is not supposed to feel good," she said. "Maybe it is supposed to make room for good things later." I looked at the yellow walls, the tiny clothes, the rocking chair, the photo of Jonah on the dresser. Room. That was what Jonah had tried to leave me. Room to grieve, room to mother, room to make choices without desperation pressing a knife to my back. My family had tried to steal that room and call it fairness. They failed. A month after the blessing ceremony, I stood in the nursery holding a stack of final trust documents. My belly was so heavy that my back ached constantly. My ankles had become strangers. My due date was close enough that every twinge made me wonder if my daughter was ready to arrive. I placed the documents in the top drawer of the dresser beneath Jonah's photo. Then I whispered, "I did it." The house was not fully resolved. The investigations were not over. My family had not apologized in any way that mattered. But my daughter's future was no longer beneath their feet. My husband could not walk into that room and defend us. So I became the person his protection was meant to make possible. My daughter was born during a thunderstorm. That felt appropriate somehow. Not poetic in the pretty way people try to make painful things pretty. Just true. Outside the hospital windows, rain lashed against the glass, lightning flashed over the parking lot, and the sky made the kind of noise that reminded me some things arrive by tearing the world open first. Labor started at 3 in the morning. At first, I thought it was another false alarm. I had been having practice contractions for days, little tightening waves that made me stop mid-sentence and grip the nearest counter. But this was different. This was lower, deeper, more insistent. My body was no longer asking questions. It had made a decision. I stood in the nursery with one hand on the crib rail and one hand on my stomach. "Okay," I whispered. "Okay, baby girl. We are doing this." For one wild second, I looked toward the bedroom like Jonah might come rushing in with shoes untied, hospital bag over one shoulder, panic hidden under a checklist. I could see it so clearly. He would have had 3 phone chargers, printed directions even though GPS existed, and a folder labeled baby arrival, because of course he would. The ache of him hit hard enough that I bent over the crib. Then my phone rang. Camille. "Are you timing them?" she asked before I said hello. "How did you know?" "Because Jonah always said you would deny labor until the baby was filling out college applications." I laughed, then gasped as another contraction took over. Camille's voice changed. "I am on my way." Lacey met us at the hospital 40 minutes later, hair in a messy bun, sweater inside out, carrying snacks like she was preparing for a natural disaster. Camille handled check-in. I handed the nurse my restricted visitor list with shaking fingers. "No, Claudia Sutton," I said. The nurse looked at the paper, then at me. "We have it flagged. No Warren Sutton, no Blair Sutton, no information by phone." "We have it flagged," she repeated, softer this time. I cried then. Not because I was scared of them showing up, though I was. Not because labor hurt, though it did. I cried because someone accepted my boundary without asking me to justify it. No guilt, no lecture about forgiveness, no warning that family might regret missing the moment. Just protection. Hours blurred after that. Pain came in waves so enormous they erased language. Camille held one hand, Lacey held the other. A nurse talked me through breathing. Someone placed a cool cloth on my forehead. At some point, between contractions, thunder shook the window and I started laughing. "What?" Lacey asked, alarmed. Jonah would be giving the storm a safety rating. Camille laughed too, then cried, then kissed my hair. When my daughter finally arrived, the world narrowed to one sound. Her cry, small, furious, alive. They placed her on my chest, warm and slippery and impossibly real. And every legal document, every forged signature, every cruel post, every accusation, every stolen dollar fell away for one sacred second. There was only her, my daughter, Jonah's daughter. She had his mouth. That was the first thing I noticed. The same soft curve at the top lip, the same little frown, as if she had arrived deeply unimpressed by the lighting. "Hi," I whispered, sobbing so hard I could barely see her. "Hi, Elodie." Elodie Jonah Ellis. I had chosen the name weeks earlier, sitting alone in the nursery with Jonah's letter in my lap. Elodie because Jonah once said it sounded like music. Jonah because I wanted her to carry him somewhere no one could steal. When the nurse asked if I was sure about the middle name, I said yes before she finished the question. Camille heard it and broke down completely. "He would love that," she whispered. "I know." And I did know. For once, grief did not feel like an empty room. It felt like a presence beside me, aching and tender, watching over the first breath of the person Jonah had loved before he met her. No one from my family came. No one slipped past the desk. No one cried in the hallway. No one demanded grandmother rights. No one turned my daughter's birth into a test of my forgiveness. Instead, my room filled slowly with chosen love. Camille brought a yellow blanket she had found in Jonah's things. Lacey brought coffee she forgot to drink. Priya came by the next day. Not as my attorney exactly, though she still looked like she could file an emergency motion between lullabies. She stood at the foot of the bed and looked at Elodie with a softness I had never seen on her face. "She is beautiful," Priya said. "She has no idea how much paperwork went into protecting her." Priya smiled. "Good. That is how protection should feel to a child." That sentence stayed with me. A child should not feel the machinery of safety. She should not know about forged authorizations, fraud reviews, title restrictions, or visitor bans. She should not learn that love can arrive with hidden invoices. She should not grow up being called strong because adults want permission to take from her. She should feel warm hands, full bottles, locked doors, honest names, money held for her future instead of stolen for someone else's image. Weeks after Elodie came home, the first major recovery payment cleared into the protected trust. Not all of it. Priya had warned me the process would take time, and she was right. The house sale, liens, insurance reimbursement issues, and civil recovery were complicated. But the first transfer was real. I sat at my kitchen table with Elodie sleeping against my chest and looked at the trust confirmation on my laptop. For years, I had thought safety would feel like abundance. It did not. It felt quiet. It felt like a baby breathing against my heart while rain tapped the window. It felt like passwords changed, documents secured, beneficiaries corrected, and people who hurt me removed from every place where they could reach us. It felt like knowing that if something happened to me, Elodie would go to people who loved her without needing to own her. I opened Jonah's letter again that night. The paper had softened from being unfolded so many times. I read the line slowly. "Do not let anyone convince you my protection was theirs to spend." "I didn't," I whispered. Elodie made a tiny sound in her sleep, and I kissed the top of her head. In the months that followed, my family tried to return in pieces. My mother sent a card with a watercolor lamb on the front. Inside, she wrote that becoming a grandmother was supposed to be the greatest joy of her life, and that I had chosen punishment over healing. I did not respond. My father sent a message through an attorney claiming he had acted under emotional pressure and had never intended permanent harm. I did not respond personally. Blair sent nothing. That was probably the closest thing to honesty she had ever given me. The investigations continued. The civil case moved. The house sold under supervision, stripped of its flower walls, neon sign, and captions about abundance. The money that could be recovered went where it belonged. The rest became part of claims, judgments, and consequences my family could no longer soften with tears. Justice did not look like a movie. It looked like direct deposits, signed orders, amended filings, and a baby asleep in a yellow nursery her father had imagined. Eventually, I started something in Jonah's name. At first, it was only a resource page on my company's website, a simple guide for widows, widowers, and surviving partners dealing with insurance claims after sudden loss. What documents to protect? What access not to share? How to confirm beneficiary instructions? When to contact an attorney? How to recognize family financial exploitation when it arrives disguised as help? Then Priya sent it to a colleague. Camille shared it with a grief support group. Lacey helped me turn it into something more formal. Within a year, it became the Jonah Ellis Protection Fund. We offered small emergency legal grants, insurance claim support, document protection checklists, beneficiary education, and grief informed financial advocacy. We helped people who were too exhausted to fight relatives who showed up after a death with soft voices and open hands. We helped surviving spouses understand that being overwhelmed did not mean being incompetent. We helped them say no before someone turned their grief into permission. Every time I approved a grant, I thought of Jonah, boring about paperwork because he loved us before the disaster. One afternoon, when Elodie was almost 6 months old, I took her to the cemetery for the first time. The sky was clear. The grass was bright. She slept against me in a carrier, one tiny fist curled against my collarbone. I stood in front of Jonah's grave and told him everything. I told him about the storm, about her mouth, about the trust, about the fund, about how his sister cried every time Elodie sneezed because apparently it sounded like him. Then I told him the part I had not been able to say out loud before. I wanted them to love me, I whispered. Even after everything, some part of me still wanted them to become better people because I needed them to. The wind moved softly through the trees. Elodie stirred against my chest. But she will not grow up waiting for people like that, I said. I promise. That was the healing, I think. Not forgiving my parents, not making peace with Blair, not pretending blood mattered more than behavior. Healing was deciding that the pattern ended with me. My parents skipped my baby shower to buy my sister a house. They thought I would be too pregnant, too grieving, and too desperate for family to fight back. They thought Jonah's death had made me weak enough to rob. They thought love meant I would stay quiet while they stole from a dead man and an unborn child. But Jonah left that money to protect us. And in the end, it did exactly that.